I got the music playing. I'm not happy. This is not a happy time. I didn't have any depressing music to put because there is no depressing music right now, but I am depressed right now.
It has been a struggle, my good sir, today and in general the past week. How are you doing?
I'm not doing good. This is ludicrous. I'm upset. I'm frustrated. If nobody's heard yet, I mean, these are still rumors, granted, but they seem uh, very legit rumors. There is a chance Chanot might be leaving. Um, give us the backstory to this. I think we should break it down from the beginning. I think that's one thing that would be helpful to somebody who's not following the Twitterverse. Let's go. Let's go by how it actually went down. So
Well, where do you think it started? Because in my opinion, where it started was they signed Burke Risa. Okay, he's a new fullback that we have. You're like, all right, he can replace Chanel in the future, but Chanel's our captain. Chanel's still playing. Well, slowly integrate him. I think that's what we all thought was going to happen. We didn't have a podcast last week. We attempted to do a podcast, so we have some recording that just didn't work out. And we talked about it on that non-released episode that it was a little weird that the captain of the team didn't start the game and Burke Risa started the game, and I found it a little strange. I thought I don't even think he ended up getting playing time. Did he end up getting playing time last week?
no, so Minnesota United, we go. He's a sub. So first thing is like, what? It's a sub. It was a little strange, but he got no minutes in that game. So that was at home, City Field. Your Capitan gets no playing time, and I mean, he was still listed as a sub on the team, but he got no starts. And just to mention something, Gabriel Pereira, the game before he left, or a couple games before he left, he was also a sub. Everybody's like, why is this guy a sub? Why isn't he in the starting lineup? He's our most threatening guy. And then he ended up leaving. But keep going with the story. So he's on the bench.
He's on the
No sub.
bench, and it felt strange. We talked about it after the game. How do you put your captain of the team on the bench? And we've had almost 2-3 weeks of rest. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And now we fly out to Cincy, get whooped, and Chanel wasn't even listed as a sub. Right when we noticed the lineup, we said something's weird here that Chanel didn't even make the flight to Cincy. Someone, you joined the press conference and you let us know what happened in the press conference.
Yeah, so I think that was one of the first the second question. Michael Allen from Blue City Radio asked, okay, why didn't Chanel start? He was very vague about his answer. He said something along the lines of um oh, he was unavailable just like the two others, which I forgot. It was Santi Rodriguez, and then who was the third person who was injured?
James Sands.
Oh yeah, James Sands. But he said unavailable. He did not say injured. So it was that he was unavailable, but he wasn't injured. So I was like, wait, what does that even mean? So then I did a follow-up question. I asked, when you say unavailable, does that mean injured? And then he was very vague again, and he says when Justin Hack and Jason were out last week and unavailable, you guys didn't ask them back then. So he was already being very defensive, and I think that's just a sign that there is more to this than we know right now.
Also, I think last week it was Jason and Justin Hack, right? That didn't make the lineup. I mean,
Mhm.
those guys are not your captain of the team, your legacy player. To compare Justin Hack and Jason to Chanel I thought it was a really jerk response by Chanel. Not by Chanel, I'm sorry, by Cushing. And after just losing 3-0, which means our defense didn't play well, do you think you'd have a better response than that?
No, and then you know what's interesting is after the Minnesota United game, I think I was listening to Blue City Radio. Michael Allen said Chanot actually talked to the media. Now, if you've been around the locker room for some time now, Chanot has not been talking to the media. Every time you try to talk to him, he's kind of like brushes you off. He's like, "Nah, I gotta go." I know he never really talks to the media that much. So for him to talk to the media, I was curious if there was a reason behind it. Maybe he wanted to dig deeper into the conversation. Maybe he wanted to say, look, there's more to this. And maybe the right questions weren't asked where he could then say why he felt a certain way. This was during the Minnesota United game where he wasn't subbed, which is strange because for him, that would be a time to not have to talk to any media, right? If you weren't even in the game, why do you have to talk to the media?
Interesting. So you think that he probably knew this was his last coming game, and you want to talk to the media like one more time?
Yeah, it could have been something. I felt like there was a reason why he wanted to talk to the media, which he never really does, or he allowed the media to talk to him.
And what? I mean, this is all speculation now. He hasn't officially left the team. It's looking like it. What do you think is the cause for him leaving this team? He's been on this team for a long time. Blue Balls just posted a tweet about 30, 40 minutes ago where, he was quoted saying, I want to win another championship with this team. I'm not leaving. He's now left. What do you think's going on?
I mean, I think it's a combination of things. I think everybody wants to say, okay, this is Nick Cushing, Nick Cushing versus Chanot. This is why he left. He knew Nick Cushing sucked. I think it definitely plays a role in it, right? It's got to play some type of role when your management, when you maybe, I don't know about this, but we even saw Nick Cushing and Chanot during the Red Bull game, or I think the game before that. Uh, what's his name? Why am I forgetting? Yeah, Cushing. Sorry, Cushing. He was going hard on Chanel during those games. He would he would call him out on his stuff. Granted, it didn't look like Chanel took it like too personally, but I wonder if that had any role or his expectation of Chanel wasn't being met by Chanel, and then Chanel felt frustrated. So I think it's a couple things, but for us to not know anything at this point and us not have clarity about why he wasn't in the game or what's going on, it's bad by management or by this front office.
I agree. I mean, that we're getting news that Chanot's on a flight to France in League Two, not even the best league in France, uh, second tier league in France. And we're hearing this through rumors and not from the team. It's just heartbreaking, man. And like, if Chanot was there, if we gave you an opportunity, Cushion, to give a better response yesterday, like the lack of communication. First of all, Chanot leaving with the way this team's played this year, with the way this team's been managed this year, with the roster, it's just so frustrating. And then to now have Chanot leaving and not it being communicated, it's just a lot, man. It's a lot to deal with, especially after we just got a loss. Uh, and our goal was to talk about Cushing and the Cincy game and how terrible that's been. And now that we get hit with this news, it feels like the organization just keeps fumbling this year, and we just are like taking it, and it's just brutal, been brutal. And in my opinion, this is all just subjective. It's hard to not say that Cushing didn't play a huge part in him leaving, right? When Dottie wanted to leave the team, it was Ronnie that convinced him to say, yeah, we're trying to win this CONCACAF Cup. Just stay another, half a year. We'll try to win this, and then you could bounce. And he got him to stay. That you can't get Chanot to stay for 8 more games, finish out the season. How do you not blame that on management?
Yeah, and this is the most important part of the season too. We're like in a playoff stretch where we really don't feel like we're gonna make the playoffs right now, and we still had hope in guys like Chanot, guys like Maxi Morales returning. Like these leaders are the key to our team, and now we're just getting rid of them. And we just lost Danny, so who knows what happened. But if you guys actually want to comment, you can you can go on the YouTube and comment. But just to keep this timeline going of how this all played out, which was Jonathan Sanchez actually from Forever actually gave us a breakdown of how this all went down. First he had the rumor. He said, just heard an interesting rumor that Maxi Chanot has left. Very interesting, being that he wasn't on the match day squad last night and was an unused sub last week. Truly an NYCFC legend. So he kind of had this scoop first, talking about it, saying, hey, this might be true. And then Hudson River Blue has been reporting more on it. Let's go to Hudson River Blue right now. Danny, you back?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm here. You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay.
So then Hudson River Blue just posted, will fly to France tonight and is expected to report to AC I'm gonna say his name wrong. This team's name wrong. So AC, Ajaccio, and Corsia tomorrow afternoon. So he's on a flight tonight to be there tomorrow. Basically, insane.
Terrible. And this is if this is true, and this is what we're how we're hearing it, it's a little embarrassing by the
What
organization.
do you read into this though? Because I tweeted this out earlier. It was so Chanot posted earlier this morning with the Empire State of Mind song playing with the heart. Do you look into that? Is that a sign that maybe he's still staying, or is that just not happening anymore and we just gotta accept it?
I think this is him maybe saying goodbye to the team. His way of saying goodbye. You know, the guy's never had he doesn't post a lot on social media. I noticed that. He posts maybe once a month. And I think this is saying, I love New York, but my time's up. I could be wrong. I don't know. This is all speculation at this point, but I think that is what how I read into that. Also, maybe there's some subliminal message there too. Like, hey, this game is like not just a game of like X's and O's, but of motivation, of keeping the team uh its morale high during these tough times. And it's like, is Cushing doing that? Was there some type of friction between these two players? And maybe the way the team was managed wasn't the way that Chanot wanted to be managed. And this is maybe what got him to leave the team. And
Yeah, I think you have a point there. I think we all know like Nick Cushing is very X's and O's, but the emotional aspect, is it there? And Chanot has been our emotional leader since the get. You know what I mean? Anytime you see him talk, he's yelling at somebody. He's like getting the players amped up. So that's his style. So maybe you're right. He was like, look, we just need to play with more heart here, not just so many X's and O's and just trying to figure it out from there. You know what I mean? So I agree with you. Maybe that was like a shot at somebody for saying, oh look, yeah, you can play with heart, but you don't know the X's and O's of every play.
yeah, and something that I find interesting, and you let me know if maybe I'm reading too much into this or not, but like big reason why I defended Cushing is, we've met him, we've spoken to him, and he's a pretty nice guy. But when he is pissed, he is like real, like he is not good at hiding that and keeping his composure. We've seen multiple interviews where you go in and you're like afraid to ask this dude a question because he's just super upset and gets super defensive. And in my work life, even when times are tough, you're looking for a leader who doesn't get defensive, who keeps his cool. And like, yeah, if you're charismatic when things are good, but you're not charismatic and keep things uplifted when things are bad, then how great of a leader are you? And so it's one of those things where I don't know what's happening in the locker room. We don't see that. We don't see how much the team likes or dislikes Cushing, but those times where times are tough that he loses his cool, I can just imagine what's happening behind closed doors.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think, in your opinion, do you think Nick Cushing has lost the locker room?
I hate saying yes because of the speculation, but I think so, man. I think so. I don't know how, you know, you defend this coaching style with this record that we have. I just don't know how you do it. And I've been trying to defend Cushing all season long, saying we don't have the pieces, saying, we don't have the right players. We have some veteran leadership. We got Maxime back, um, Maxime Morales. We got these new players, and it still seems like the same team. And what's interesting is it feels like some of the players that we've gotten, like Baki, look like killers, and then every game look less like killers. And it's like, what's happening? How is this possible? How are we looking worse than when they first joined the team? And it's like, I don't know what's happening, man, but it feels like the team is looking worse than looking better. And I get it was against the best team in the league, Cincy, with the best record, but at the same time, it's hard to not see that and go, it doesn't even look like we were trying out there. It was tough.
Well, I mean, they were trying. They just weren't doing anything with it. And we look like the team that didn't have that we played 120 minutes on Wednesday versus Cincinnati, who actually played 120 minutes. It's just frustrating. And at this point, I think the fan base has lost so much confidence in Nick Cushing, rightfully so at this point, that if you don't replace the coaching, I think it's questionable, as in the sense your fan base thinks this is the coach's fault. Should that have any impact on how you move forward? Because they are the soul of this team, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to. I know there's a lot of people really frustrated and say kick Cushing out today. I don't think that makes sense, right? There's 7 more games left in the season. Let them finish the season out. But unless we go on a 7-game winning streak, get into the playoffs somehow, go far into the playoffs, I don't see how Cushing keeps his job, man. Because it's like I agree that the team has lost. Not the team. I feel like the fan base has lost a lot of confidence on this team. It's quick to turn that around if you can make the team win, but I mean it's been a year of Cushing now, and the record's there, man. We've been terrible. How do you
Yeah.
defend him?
No, I agree. I think the only way, and it still might not be enough at this point because we've lost so much, we've drawn so much that, and we've seen kind of what we get out of Nick Cushing. That even if we go on a 7-game winning streak and make the only way you can actually defend it, we get into the playoffs and we get deep into the playoffs, right? Then that changes the whole storyline, right? Then he was able to turn around with maybe without Maxi, without a Gabriel Pereira, with the team that we just have right now, without Tati Castellanos. So if we make the playoffs, okay, maybe we're talking about a different story. And then if we make a playoff run, then we're talking about, okay, there's no way he's leaving.
Yeah, but my thing is, bro, even with Chanel leaving, is that enough? Like, if the thing is, because management doesn't communicate these things up front, now we have speculation. To not think that Chanel's not leaving because of Cushing, it's hard not to connect those dots. And that is a legend of this team. I think when you think about who was going to get statues in the new stadium, Chanel would be one of the first names you're mentioning. And now he's leaving. I'm sure people are saying if we fire Cushing, will Chanel come back? Let's get Chanel back. It's not like it's a better opportunity, right? It's not like he's 25 years old and wants to be the next Messi.
Yeah.
It's a senior guy who's lived in New York for a long time saying he wants to go back to France to play in League Two. It feels like that has to be some type of friction between him and the front office, and specifically Nick Cushing.
But this friction feel like it came out of nowhere. I think that's the frustrating part. Like it feels like I don't like so
But
do
you
you think
mentioned it. He hasn't been communicating with the press all year. He doesn't talk to us in the locker room. You don't think that could be something? Maybe
I mean,
we
but what
just
would
weren't
that
reading the signs.
I mean, I guess if you start adding up multiple things, but what does not talking to the press have to do with him leaving the squad? Maybe he foresaw this coming in the beginning of the season, but also there's been times where the NYCFC social media post a video and he's like, "We're making the damn playoffs. I've never not made the playoffs." So you would think he was invested in this team. I think maybe you're right. And when it comes to Burke Risa, he saw, whoa, we just got this guy. I mean, I would have thought maybe he would have saw it as, oh, we need more depth on this position. Anyways, I can't. Me and Tiago Martins is injured half the time, and I'm getting there in age. But maybe he did take it offensively that they signed somebody, and maybe he wasn't aware of it, or he got offended that that's his replacement, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, and he was mad about it last year. We talked about this last season, right? They brought in Tiago Martins, and it was like, and there was a lot of Tiago Martins and Callens playing last year. And we're like, ah, maybe Chanel's old. And then Chanel had the eye injury. And it was like, okay, well, maybe it worked out that they made the smart move. Tiago Martins has been terrible this year. I thought it was really interesting that they decided to play. That's not true. Not terrible this year. The
Yeah,
past few
I think
games.
you're overselling that. He
Yeah,
hasn't been
yeah,
that
yeah. But he hasn't been great lately. He wasn't great yesterday. He wasn't great the game before. And for a DP signing, I don't think he's played to the level that he should be playing. Um, and so it feels like they keep finding players to replace Chanot, and Chanot's been the only consistent player on this back line. So to see him, I would be frustrated if I was him too.
Yeah.
I'm just so mad, man. I'm just so mad. Like that just I was already mad before this, and we should talk about the Cincy game, but and the game we lost before that too. But like I really hope the Chanot news is just all nonsense and this podcast sounds dumb because he plays on Wednesday and we're all happy, but it's not looking good.
No, it's not looking good. And like I said, there's a track record of this. There's a track record of them not having a player start when they should be starting, and it's just like what? And then they're gone a couple of days later.
Yeah.
So this is definitely, and the way that Nick Cushing was very defensive about it, you could tell he was hiding something. Granted, they probably told him to hide it, so I don't think that's necessarily on Nick Cushing, but the front office should start being more clear with fans because it just doesn't make any sense when you don't see him on the injury report and you don't know what's going on.
So I think it's time. I think we've spent 21 minutes talking about Chanot leaving, which we can talk about it for hours, but I'm sure no one wants to listen to that. We should talk about the Cincy game, which is another frustrating situation. Um,
When when
and
we when we look at the lineup though, that looked like the best lineup. If we start off just on the lineup, it felt like that was the best team you could field out there at that moment.
before the lineup came, no, when the lineup came out, my first thought was where's Chanot. I did
No,
think
no,
this.
of course, we know the Chanot. Other than Chanot,
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. I guess you would say yes.
so
Well, yes, okay.
go say what you were gonna say.
I mean, the Chanel thing was really big, though. My man's had Thiago Martins, Burke Reese, and Gray. I didn't think Gray played so well there. I think if you would have had Chanel out there as the three people in the back, that could have changed that back line quite a bit. So I feel like we shouldn't undersell that, especially because 3 goals were scored against us. And 2 of those goals came from Thiago Martins ball watching. So, like, I think yes, maybe offensively, there was a lineup that we expected or hoped for. I mean, Santi Rodriguez wasn't playing because there was an injury, so we shouldn't take away from that too. Santi plays a big part in making this team good. But it was nice to see Reese out there. It was nice to see uh, Julio Fernandez get a start. Um, but yeah, I
No, and
guess
I kind of like that they played that back three basically with the wingers pushing forward,
yeah.
while the backs pushing forward, the left and the right back.
Mhm.
But I think moving forward, if we don't have Chanel, that's going to be an issue, right? Because now we're expecting Thiago Martins, Gray's going to have to be that consistent guy, and then the third guy, Risa.
Yeah, yeah. And so but that backline was not good. I think we need Chanel. But if we want to not talk about that anymore, before we talk about this game, because we didn't have a podcast last episode, we saw Pellegrini start on the right. So my thing is where I think there's a big thing of like the bigger narrative here is there is a 3-0 loss. We had a 1-0 loss last week,
No, 2-0.
and
We lost to Manu by 2-0.
oh
I mean,
yeah, because it was right at the last minute. Yeah,
Minnesota,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So the question is like, are we now Cushing out? Because I think we've been like one of the bigger Cushing defenders in the Twitterverse/podcast world, and I feel like what I said on Twitter and how I feel that I want to talk about is I think the frustrations that I see from this game against Cincy and the last game is I feel like, Cushing says it himself. This game is all about margins. And margins don't always come on the pitch, but make the decisions that happen during the game too, right? And I think some of his decisions have led to these marginal changes that have consistently been poor decisions. And I've tried to figure out how these decisions make sense. He's been doing this a lot longer than we have. He's a professional coach. He's won championships, but that we are seeing Talis Magno not get time with Burke Reese on the
Oh, no, with
field.
Munsef.
Sorry, Munsef on the pitch. That we're seeing Pellegrini still get starts. That we're seeing Chanot not getting starts. Like, I don't understand these decisions. I don't understand how we know that the Talis Magno at the 9 is a failed experiment, and he's still doing it. I, I someone please explain this to me. What are your thoughts on
Well,
Cushing and his
to
decision?
address the Pellegrini thing, he thinks Pellegrini's like a workhorse and he puts a lot of pressure when they have the ball, so he's gonna like press a little harder than other people will. So I think that's his reasoning for signing Pellegrini. I mean, putting Pellegrini in the lineup, which I don't agree with. I mean, at this point, we've seen Pellegrini on counterattacks just completely destroy a counterattack when we have like 3-on-2. Like it's just annoying and frustrating. Granted, Pellegrini, I thought against Minnesota wasn't terrible. wasn't the worst. I mean, he did have a couple messed up plays, but I don't think he was the worst. But yeah, on that Talus Magno, it doesn't make sense. And to be honest, start Talus Magno. We haven't we haven't Talus Magno was ineffective when he had to play the 9. But we know as a winger, when he has a true 9, he can actually do something with the ball. So why at this point I say start him, and I know that's probably not everybody's belief because everybody thinks Talus Magno is the worst player in the world. Which, granted, he does have his poor moments, but he still had talent. And if you put him on the wing where his natural position is, then he's way more deadly with a true striker, which we see Munsev actually making the correct runs. Like we now know that we have a true striker who's going to actually make the correct run where you can actually cross it in, or he's going to be in the right spot where you need him to. And now with Maxi back, we're so much more of a vertical threat, and it'll just open up the field completely. So it needs to happen. We need to see Talus Magno and Munsev on at the same time. It just doesn't make sense that we haven't seen that happen. You could say Munsev is tired at the end of the game. I don't care. Just give him some minutes. Sub in Talus at halftime to see how they roll together. I don't know if in training there's something that we're missing, but why haven't we seen these two on the pitch at the same time?
And not only that, but Munsev is what, 21, 22 years old, and he can't play 90 minutes. But you have Maxi Morales, who's about to be in a senior citizen home, playing 90 minutes.
Hey, don't play
Like,
my boy Maxi like that.
I love Maxi, but I'm saying is you can't use the excuse of like tired legs when we were off for 17 days. He's been training with the team longer than Maxi has with this new roster. I get, and the thing is, like, I know he's lied to us in the past in press conferences, but like now they're not adding up with each other. You know what I mean? Like if you're saying, I can't play a guy for 90 minutes because he just got off a plane. Maxi just got off a plane. I can't play these guys because they don't have chemistry. You're doing it with Max, like you're doing it with a bunch of other players. So the the lies aren't adding up. They're not consistent, and I'm just so frustrated. And Jason Siegel is a striker. Like if Burke
Gabe
Risa,
Siegel.
I'm sorry,
You love
sorry,
Jason
sorry.
Siegel for some reason. What's up with you and Jason
I'm
Siegel?
sorry. I'm sorry. They have the same last name. It messes me up. But if you have Siegel, like Siegel and Talus Magno, I just can't believe we're still playing Magno on a striker. I don't get it. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Cushion's betting on the other teams.
You're an idiot.
Again,
But
so yeah. So that's my biggest strife. There was the other strife regarding Pellegrini, which I agree. Just want to point on that. Pellegrini had a couple good crosses last game that not Burke Reese. I'm sorry, these guys are really gonna mess me up. Baki could have scored, but for the exception of like those two crosses, black hole out there, that counter looked like it could have really become something. And to see it get turned over so quickly was heartbreaking. So I get it. I get he plays better on defense. As you see here by my name tag, I'm a Jesus Medina lover. I understand that, but he's just been so much worse than Jesus Medina. Has been so poor offensively the majority of the time. And you had someone like Julio Fernandez, Alonso Martinez available. Even Jason can play on the right. I just thought, and that was another thing. He played Santi on the left, Pellegrini on the right. Santi plays better on the right. Talus Magno should have been on the left. You could have had both of those guys out there.
I mean, Santi,
So frustrated.
Santi, he floats around though. He's all over the pitch. It really doesn't matter where Santi's technical position is because he floats around so much.
But I think
But
that lineup could have been better. But yeah, keep going. Sorry.
But you said the whole thing about Cushing and how you felt you've been a supporter of Cushing. So where do you stand today? I don't think so. You're saying don't get rid of him before the end of the season.
I mean, what are you doing that for? You know what I mean? I don't think that brings value to anybody.
Well,
So I
you
think
could see
right out
what
to
you
the
have
rest
on. You could see what an interim coach on the bench would look like. Blue Balls tweeted out. I forget Bellucci or I forget his name, but
the Brazilian dude.
yeah.
I mean, maybe, but then it's like the same thing, right? Do we want to repeat what we did last year? You have an interim head coach, then you're going into press conferences, Is he going to be the full coach? What are we going to do? Like, it just leads to a lot of questions. It could lead to a lot of distractions when we're trying.
No, but last year was completely different in the sense that Ronnie decided to leave. Right
Yeah,
now, Nick Cushing, it's not him deciding to leave. It would be the front office makes a decision on what his future is. And at this point, don't you want to say to your fan base, look, we should have been winning now. And this is a message to you that we want to still win now. Right? Because, okay, we signed all these great players, right? Or we signed all these players in the second transfer window. Didn't this feel like a push to make a run? Why get
it did.
Maxi Morales, who's older at this point, if you don't think you're gonna make a run? So at this point, it feels like they wanted to make a run and they didn't have either they don't think their coaching did enough, or they didn't gather enough of the right pieces. So if you put it on them, if they put it on themselves, then oh, we messed up. We didn't sign enough players. If they put it on the coaching staff, then that warrants somebody losing their job at that point, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
So you either have to make a message now or you lose some of your fan base saying, look, you guys aren't being straight up with us. What is the future of this organization? Are we rebuilding right now? Because it doesn't feel like we're rebuilding. We just signed a bunch of players.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I do think we're building for the future. I do think the front office, and they told us this, that was the goals was to make the playoffs. So I think they're gonna give Cushing the chance. Because remember, Cushing's been with CFG for 17 years. There are 7 games left. If he could somehow turn this around, I think they're gonna give him that opportunity. And I think, yeah, we're gonna be super frustrated for the next 7 games. But if they go and sign Pep in December, we're not going to say anything. You know what I mean? We're going to be like, ah, all right, they care. So I don't know if bringing in the Brazilian guy to coach for the 7 games, we might not even want him to be the head coach in the future. You know what I mean? So I don't think it makes too much sense. I think you let him write it out. Don't be as reactionary as us fans are, and then decide from there based on what he can do. What I'm scared of though, because maybe if they would have gotten rid of Cushion earlier, would have Chanot stayed on the team? That's what kills me. Is like if it's real, if he is a morale killer, then he should be left. If he's losing the locker room, and then that means these players leave us during the transfer window,
I
during the
think that's
offseason.
the biggest question. And it I don't think it has to do with a direct correlation. Me personally. I think okay, if you want to say I don't think necessarily he had a bad relationship with Nick Cushing. I mean this is speculation, but I could see him being frustrated with how the team was being managed. So you're saying that warrants him leaving because he has no faith in Nick Cushing is what you're saying.
Yes.
Got it. But I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it could have been opportunity. First, he's going back to France, which this is what Chanot probably wanted. Not per se a good team, but Chanot's 33 years old. I mean, he's towards the tail end of his career. If he can go back home, you don't think he would want to go back home?
I mean, it's New York, France, same thing. Except they have French
What?
people over here.
He's got family over there. It's completely different. But it did feel like he wanted to be New York. And by the quote that he said 2 years ago or a year ago when he signed his extension contract, it was like he wants to be here for the foreseeable future. And it felt like he could have been one of those guys who could have been part of the coaching staff after his playing career was over.
And that's why I think it's more than just this great opportunity came by and you're like, oh, I get to have better cheese in France. I think there's a bad relationship between someone and Chanel, and it's hard to not point it at Cushing. It could be the front office. It could be the Burke Risa signing, right? And he doesn't like what David Lee's doing, and he's like, "You've been trying to replace me for years. I'm done with this." But you know, right now there's just been a lot of poor play on the pitch, and to not find that poor pitch and correlate that with Chanel leaving and not blame that on the manager, it's just hard to not connect those dots.
Is there any astronomical number that they said, like they pulled this with Gabriel Pereira? There was a number that we couldn't refuse. Then they did a higher bid, and we were like, all right, we're giving away Gabriel Pereira.
Bro, it's League Two. They don't even. They don't even. I mean, how much money can they afford?
I don't know how the French leagues work, but maybe there is no salary cap or anything along those lines, so they could spend.
I don't think so, man. I think I think there's a bigger problem, and maybe we'll learn about it soon. Uh, Maybe we reach out to Chanot and we ask him.
Yeah, Chanel definitely not talking to
I
us.
pinged him on Insta, but he hasn't responded, so we'll see.
That boy definitely not answering you, bro. He has no interest in talking to you. I think that covers Sin City. So we play Montreal Wednesday. Are you optimistic at all? I just
The
eh,
only reason I'm optimistic is because we only win against Canadians this year, and we're playing Montreal, and so we beat Montreal last time. We destroyed Toronto.
did we actually beat Montreal last time?
Yeah, remember that was the.
We played Toronto. We beat Toronto for sure.
No, I think we beat Montreal too. I remember I made that same joke. Why are we so good against Canadians? So,
Of course, you will remember your own joke, your own corny joke.
so that's my expectation is that we win that game because we're home. We're at Yankee Stadium. I know that hasn't meant much this season, but I still think that we're able to take it. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic, even though I'm super mad right now. Um, but I think we can beat that team. We got to turn it around on offense, though, man. I feel like it's the same story. I mean, last game it was terrible. We didn't even get shots really on goal, but the finishing was terrible against Minnesota, and you can tell that there's just not like a lot of chemistry. They're holding on to the ball too much. Once again, I kind of blame that on Cushing and what they're doing there during training because like you could see they're hesitant. They're not getting those passes off. I get there's time to mesh, but you got some stars, man. You got to make them work. You got to let them cook. So yeah,
Yeah, if we look at where Montreal stands, they're 8th versus us 13th. They have 35 points versus our 26 points. It's bad, man. It's crazy that we're 6 points away from Chicago and we've played one more game ahead of them. And Inter Miami's cooking right now, so they're looking for that 8th or 9th spot. It's just crazy that we're in this position because it didn't even feel like with those added playoff spots, it felt like you were a lock to get into the playoffs. And the fact that this team, with what we have surrounding this team and these players, aren't are in jeopardy of not making the playoffs is just crazy to think about.
and we got Christian here commenting cushion out, which is a new perspective from Christian. Uh, uh, I mean, and Christian, I don't know how much of the pod you've heard, but I'm pretty much on board with you. I just say till the end of the season because I just don't know who we want on this coaching staff to coach. And I don't want that type of pressure of having to choose whether the interim stays interim and becomes, the head coach. Or I think we just kind of decide at the end of the
But I'm
season.
I'm on the opposite end. Make a statement. You know what I mean? If you're saying he's not doing enough to keep his job, make a statement, right? This is the statement you can make to the fan base to say, look, your my coach hasn't done enough. The guy from Portland just lost his job, and he's been there for years. So this isn't crazy. This is Nick Cushing's only been the coach for a year. This isn't like a crazy thing. We've won one game out of I don't know how many at this point. It's been so many. So like I think in a sense Christian's right. There's no excuse at this point. Like there's really nothing that can be done, but you can make a statement at least. And then Christian says the season is over. No chance of making the playoffs. You can hire someone in the winter.
Agreed. That's what we do. Hire someone in the season is over though. If we don't win in Montreal, I really think it's over. I don't even think it's mathematically possible if we lose against Montreal, and we're definitely going to lose against Messi. So that already accounts. We already counted that as a loss. Thought we could make it with the other games, but now if we don't win against Montreal, it's definitely over. Um,
Yeah, for sure. All right. I think I'm done.
yeah,
You
I
got
think
anything else to say?
sad. Chanel, we're gonna miss you deeply if you really are gone.
I think he's
Um,
for sure gone, bro.
uh,
It it's sad, sad times. We'll see. We'll keep covering it. Let's see what the fuck happens, but not a good time.
Not a good time at all.
All right,
Heartbreaking.
yeah.
Peace.
Peace.